Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today we are talking pistol light setup. And don't worry, this one is not going to be nearly as expensive as the rifle light video. Although the one that people seem to be really interested in that video was the more budget setup from Streamlight that we talked about, which happens to be a really good setup. Well, with pistol lights, you don't have to spend nearly as much money as rifle lights. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. For one, there's just not nearly as many supporting accessories that you need for a pistol light. But for two, the budget light is actually really good when it comes to pistols, both for carry pistols and full-size pistols. And I do think that any pistol that has the ability to take a light should have a light. So if you're into that, make sure you're subscribed and let's talk pistol lights. So in the rifle light video, I talked about how my favorite setup these days is from Mod Light. But the problem with that is that once you put it all together, you've got the light, a tail cap, a switch, a mount, all this stuff. You're getting above $500 for a light setup like this. Although you could put a Streamlight setup together for much less, and the ProTech HLX is a great light. Well, I've got good news when it comes to your pistol lights. You don't have to spend $500 on a pistol light. Now, you don't have to spend $500 on a rifle light either, but those are the lights that I just happen to like the best. And whether you go with Mod Light, Cloud Defensive, Surefire, Airsock, and Malkoff, you're gonna be spending some money. With pistol lights, in my opinion, you basically have two options. You have Streamlight and you have Surefire. Now, there are other pistol lights, and in fact, Mod Light makes a fantastic pistol light. But the reason why I feel like there are two options are this. With pistols, you need holsters. And holster companies, they all make holsters for Surefire X-300 and Streamlight TLR-1 HL. And for carry guns, they all make a holster for the TLR-7. And the TLR-7, there's a whole series of lights. This one happens to be the TLR-7 Sub, specifically made for the rail on the P365 series of pistols from Sig Sauer. So let's get into this, and first I want to talk about full-size pistol lights. And you're going to see in this video, you can see right now, TLR-1 HL on my M&P, TLR-1 HL on my PSA Dagger Glock clone there, and I've got a TLR-1 HL on my Springfield Prodigy. Now these are all basically full-size guns. Now technically the Dagger Compact has compact in the name. It's a Glock 19 size gun. This is the full-size M&P, 4¼ inch barrel, and a 2011. It's a full-size gun. Now there is a 5-inch barrel version. This is the 4¼ inch barrel, but it's not a small gun. And I specifically choose the Streamlight TLR-1 HL for a number of reasons. And don't get me wrong, I think that the Surefire X-300 is a fantastic light, but it also does cost twice as much as this. In fact, more than twice as much. And the great thing about pistol lights is I think that you get a lot of performance out of the Streamlight in the pistol light space. And to me, I actually like these better than Surefire. Don't get me wrong, I do think that the Surefire X-300 looks better, especially on certain setups. I think probably on this, it would look a little better, but it is longer. So maybe on the 5-inch version, yeah, it would look fantastic. Surefire X-300 has a fantastic aesthetic. There is no denying that. It's a good looking pistol light. But function over form, right? Now, I have said that many times in videos in the past, but at the same time, we all know that looking cool is important as well. But is that a good enough reason to spend $330 on a light versus $130? I'm not so sure it is, and I'm going to get into the reasons why after a quick word from our channel partner. This video is sponsored by Aura. You will never be able to afford a Staccato XC if you're getting hit with scammers all the time, and Aura takes care of that for you. In fact, They take care of all of your online security all in one place. You get a VPN, you get home title monitoring, parental controls, but the big one is you get data broker removal. Now, what does that mean? Aura goes online, you take just a couple minutes to set it all up, and then they scour the dark web, the regular internet, everything out there, and they find anywhere where your data has been leaked. And they submit opt-out requests on your behalf, which removes you from any of those lists. And what that does is it removes you from lists that are accessed by scammers and by spammers, and more than that as well. But I've been using it for about 7 months now. And you know what? I used to get calls all the time, people trying to scam me through my debit card, through my bank account, and it caused me a lot of problems at one point. I don't get those anymore, and I haven't gotten those calls in 7 months. I also don't get spam calls anymore. I don't get spam emails anymore. All of that stuff has been gone from my life, and it's really nice just to know that my information isn't out there anymore, and that I don't have to worry about getting scammed anymore, and I'm not receiving spam anymore. Those are the biggest things that Aura has done for me, which honestly has really improved my life and just kind of puts me at ease. And they can do the same for you. If you use my link down below, aura.com/sawtooth-tactical, you get 2 weeks free trial. That's 14 days to try it out and see if you like it. If you do want to stick with it, it's only $12 a month after that. And you get all of those things that I talked about earlier and more. I think that it is absolutely worth it. I appreciate them for sponsoring the channel. Now back to your regular scheduled program. So I said earlier that there are 2 options, and the reason I say that is holster compatibility. That's a big reason for it. You gotta find holsters for your pistols. Some pistols are easier to find holsters for than others, but then when you start putting red dots and lights and everything else that you put on a modern fighting pistol, well, then you gotta be able to find a holster that accommodates all that stuff. And if you have some weird brand of light that nobody's ever heard of, you're gonna have a really hard time finding a holster for it. But in my experience, every major holster company makes holsters for the TLR-1 from Streamlight and the Surefire X-300. Now we did talk about how, yes, I do think that the X-300 looks cooler, but is that a good enough reason to spend an extra $200 on top of the price of a Streamlight? In my opinion, probably not. Now, certain pistols, yeah, maybe because you gotta have that aesthetic, but we're gonna show you in a minute. We're gonna compare the actual light output of a couple of these Streamlight lights, and you'll see how good these really are. And a big thing to me, so when it comes to a rifle light, yeah, having a ton of candela might be important because you really gotta be able to light up rifle distances. Well, for realistic pistol distances, these TLR-1 HLs have 1,000 lumens and enough candela to do anything that I think is reasonable and responsible to do with a pistol. Now, why put a light on your pistol in the first place? Because I did say in the intro that I think that every gun that has a rail for a light should have a light. Well, the same reason I put lights on all my rifles. Bad things do tend to happen at night, and it is dark half the time in this world. And so why would you not put a light on if you can have one? And I'm not saying don't carry a handheld light as well. I think that that is a smart thing to do also. You can't use your gun light to, just look around for stuff the same way you can with a handheld light, because then you're pointing your gun at things. 4 rules of gun safety. Don't point this at anything you're not willing to destroy. A gun light is for a very specific purpose, not just as an all-around light. So keep that in mind. But at the same time, positive target identification is very important. And when bad things do happen at night, you got to make sure that what you're pointing your gun at is something that is appropriate to point your gun at, or to fire at especially. And so I think that having a light is very, very important. Now people will say lots of times, like, when was the last time you needed the light on your pistol? Well, when was the last time you needed your pistol? I mean, it's a just in case thing. It's like a fire extinguisher. You hope you never need this. That's the whole point. But if you do, you might as well have all the capability that's available to you. And in my opinion, that's a light and a red dot. Every pistol that could take a light or a red dot, in my opinion, should have one. Now, why do I choose Streamlight? Because, again, that holster compatibility, this is a very mainstream light. But it's also a very good light. It's very powerful. It has plenty of lumens and candela to do anything I would use a pistol for. But my other reason is the switchology. And that's a big reason why I have a bunch of Streamlights and you don't see a bunch of Surefires. And I do think that the X-300 is a really good light, but the switches on it are not as easy to use as these Streamlight switches are. Now that can pose a problem as well. These are almost too easy to use. And I've even noticed myself, usually only when I'm filming YouTube videos, you can easily hit the light inadvertently if you're not careful. That is called a light ND, a negligent discharge of your white light. I'm also not in combat, and if my gun is out at night, the light should probably come on anyway. I don't think it's as important as it is on a rifle light, worrying about light ND, but it is a consideration. Thing is though, as long as you're careful, treat it like your trigger. You don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire. Don't put your finger on your light switch until you're ready to use that as well. Thing is though, is the Streamlight switches are awesome. They are ambidextrous. And you can program this thing as well. When it comes from the factory, it has a couple modes. And if you hit your switch twice, it'll strobe. I don't like the strobe mode, and I program that out of all of my lights as soon as I get them, before I even put them on the pistol. I like to just have control over my light. I don't want it to accidentally strobe if I turn it off and on and back on again. And that will happen when the strobe feature is on. So I program it to not strobe. You can do what you want. A strobe light is definitely disorienting to a home intruder. And so I can see the reason for that. But personally, I just want to have control over my light. And that means that I disable the strobe feature. So these lights with your trigger finger, if you're right-handed, now I am left-handed, but I shoot right-handed, up is momentary, or you can click it down for constant on, or if you're using your support hand thumb, down for momentary, click it up for constant on. That is pretty sweet and easy to me. Now the Surefire switches are just fine, but they're a little bit hard to push. In my opinion, they're just not as easy to use. And that's a big reason that I use these Streamlights. Also, just like I mentioned in the rifle light video, where I have all of my rifle lights set up the same way, with the switch in the same location, and all that, so that it's just automatic. Well, I feel the same way about my pistol lights. And so, with all of them being these Streamlights, no matter which one I happen to have on me, it's going to be automatic because I've used them so many times and I know what they're going to do. And I'm not going to try to activate a Surefire light and the switch is so much harder to move that it doesn't come on when I want it to or come off when I want it to come off. And again, I'm not talking shit about Surefire. Surefire makes some of the best lights that there are. They probably do make the best pistol light. But I'm a huge fan of these Streamlights. And at the same time, you can get 2 of these for the price of a Surefire X-300. Now, the new X-300 Turbo, it has ridiculous candela. You can see out to 150 yards clearly. That's awesome. But are you taking 150-yard shots with your pistol at night? That's a question that you need to answer for yourself. I have found that this light does anything that I need it to do on a pistol. I think the switches are great. It has perfectly adequate shoulder or holster compatibility across the board. Every company makes a holster for this light as long as they make a holster for your model gun. So I have this on Smith & Wesson M&P, on the Springfield Prodigy, which works in 2011 holsters, on the Dagger, which works in Glock 19 holsters. And so I've not had a problem finding holsters for this. Now, when we talk about holsters, we got to talk about carry pistols. So while Streamlight has competition from Surefire in the full-size pistol light space, I think when it comes to carry guns, there is no competition. There really is only one option, and that is Streamlight, in my opinion. This is the TLR-7 Sub, and it looks a lot like that TLR-1, but it is the size for a smaller carry pistol. And they even make it specific to your pistol. So this is the TLR-7 Sub for the SIG P365 specifically because it has a proprietary rail. So Streamlight makes a light for it. And this thing is tiny. It's really small, but it's really powerful. Now, I have tried some of the really small pistol lights. I had one from another company at one point on this P365 before I made it into the XL configuration that you see here. And the light had like 100 lumens. It didn't do much. And it was made out of plastic. And it screwed onto the trigger guard and it was kind of a piece of junk. Well, this is a totally legit light and holster compatibility. Tier 1 concealed. They make holsters for this light. I mean, this is from We the People holsters. They make holsters for this light. Every company that makes a holster for a carry size gun makes it for the TLR-7 Sub or other TLR-7 models, because there is a number of TLR-7 models depending on what kind of gun you're putting them on. And they make holsters for them. Everybody makes holsters for them. Now the switches on the TLR-7 Sub are a little bit different than the switches that I love so much on the TLR-1. These ones, you just push down, but if you push it and click it, it's constant on. If you just hold it, it's momentary. And again, they are ambidextrous. So you can use your support hand thumb or your trigger finger to activate that light. So you can, put it on, go mode and put your finger in the trigger guard if you needed to. Or you can momentary with your support hand thumb, which is the way I tend to use it. And this is a really, really good light. And I don't feel like you're giving up anything by getting a small pistol light with this light. It actually is plenty powerful. And we're going to turn off the lights right now and I'm going to show you how powerful it really is. All right, so first we are going to do the TLR-1 HL. This is on my Springfield Prodigy. You can see that it has a very powerful hotspot, but also decent spill, which is what I think you want on a pistol light. You kind of want to be able to see what's going on around you. Now that's a full-size light. This is the TLR-7 Sub. Not quite as bright of a hotspot, but I mean, it's to be expected. It's a smaller light. But for a carry gun size light, this thing is plenty powerful. And if I had this, I'm carrying it out at dinner at night and I'm going to my car and something happens, I totally trust this to light up potential target or anything else just fine. And that's kind of the whole point. So as you see, very powerful, the TLR-1 HL. HL, I believe, standing for high lumen. But even the little TLR-7 Sub that I could put on this P365 XL, and I can carry it and conceal it very comfortably, is plenty powerful for a gun this size and a light this size. And so these are all the reasons that I choose to use Streamlight lights. Holster compatibility, switchology, and honestly, just really good performance and great output. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite lights to run are. Again, I'm not talking shit about the Surefire X-300. I think it is a really good light. These are just what I choose to run. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.